Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we are going to learn something about how to make a function return a value. So in the previous lecture I have already explained that a function is nothing but it's like a black box which accepts some data. It is going to process or manipulate that data and it is going to give back you some data. So we have already learned how to make a function, how to pass the data to the function, but we have not actually learned how to make a function return some value or return the data or the processed data. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to take same example which we had taken in the previous lecture, that is to make a function which adds up to numbers. So let's type in def add, which is a function name, and let's pass two values a and b. So this code is going to be the same, no changes in that, and also make sure that you have space over here. And now once you have this function with you, the next thing which you need to do is that you need to type in some code into this function. So what we are going to do is that we are going to take a third variable c, and we are going to type in c equals a plus b. So now basically we have the value of the addition stored in the variable c. Now what we need to do here is that as we want to make a function return some value, we type in the return statement. So we type in return, and right after return we need to specify what do we want to return. So as this is an addition function which accepts two values a and b, so we actually need to return the addition of two numbers which is actually stored in c. Hence we actually need to return the value which is c. So we type return c, and what this function is essentially going to do is that it is going to take two values a and b. It is going to add those two values, store them into c, and finally return c, which is nothing but our result. So once we have this function defined, let's go ahead and call this function. So in order to call this function, what you simply need to do is that you type add, then you specify two values into it, let's say 100, 200. But one different thing in this case when the function returns a value is that as the function is going to return a value, you actually need something to store that particular value. And I don't know why the c actually got disappeared. So this will essentially return c, and as this function is going to return some value, we actually need to have something which is going to store the value returned by this function. So in order to save that particular value, we make another variable, and let's call that variable as result. So we type result equals and the function call. So what this is going to do is that it is not only going to call this function, but it is also going to save the value which is returned by the add function, which is nothing but c, into the result variable right here. So now once we have this value in our result variable, we simply need to print out the value of the result variable. So we type print result, and that is essentially going to print out the value stored in result. So if you save the code and if you run it, as you could see, we got the result as 300. So let me explain you the flow of execution of this code once again. So we have defined a function which we have already done in the previous lecture. We have added two numbers and saved the result into c. Now as this function is an addition function, we want to make it return some value. So we have typed in return c. Now this function returns a value. That means when we call this function, we need to have some variable in place that is going to accept that value. So in order to accept that value, we have used the variable result. So we type result equals and the function call, and we have passed in two numbers for addition, which is 100 and 200. So these two numbers are going to be passed here. The result, which is c, is going to be returned here, and that result is going to be stored in the result variable. So once we have the result variable, we actually need to print out the content so that we get the result on the output screen. So we have simply used the print function and passed the value of result to it. So that's how you could make a function return some value in Python so that that value could be used in your program. So thank you very much for watching this lecture, and I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Thank you.